Hey everybody, it's Ken McElroy. I'm here with my good buddy Travis Hawsey. Trav, what's going on?
Not much, Kenny. Good to see you.
Yeah, really, really good. I know, so Travis and I met through our mastermind, the collective, and we've become good friends from that. Let's talk about your background. I know you were involved with Rum Chata, and you've got your own liquor brand. You've got a bunch of bars. You got 100 vans on the road for Amazon. You've got a bunch of real estate. You have incredible, very diverse background. Why don't you give everybody just a flavor of, obviously an athlete, played college football, avid athlete. What else you want to jump in there on?
Yeah, a lot of people like the liquor industry. It's kind of a hot topic these days. There's a lot of celebrities that are getting into it. It's very sexy and it's very romantic, right? And I started with a little tavern called the Missouri Tavern right outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And one of the things a little bit ahead of the trend where people would make homemade versions of apple pie, like apple pie shots. And I used to kind of call it the limoncello of the Midwest, or like the limoncello of North Carolina, Kentucky, where a lot of people just made these homemade versions. I was just the first guy that actually bottled it. So when I started, there were 89 distilleries in the country. They call them DSPs, distilled spirits permit. And there wasn't a lot. The craft boom hadn't happened yet. The craft brewery boom hadn't happened yet. So I just kind of caught that wave lucky. And I was a guy that knew nothing of the liquor industry. I didn't even know what an FOB was, which is a price that you sell to distributors were.
A lot of people, they see these celebrities jump on. Obviously Tequila brand is kind of the hot topic at the moment. A lot of celebrities. When you see that, what immediately comes to mind? Because I've been told, actually, you might have told me that it's a fair amount of money to get into the game.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the joke in the wine industry, right? How do you make a billionaire a millionaire? Is you put them in the liquor industry.
Yeah.
Right. It's different, right? I think you need to be new. You need to have something that's unique and catchy. Tequila's great. Everybody's been jumping on that wave. When I was young, years ago in the industry, in Colorado, it was big, right? In Arizona, it was big. In California, it was big. But nobody else drank tequila anywhere else around the country, right? But then when obviously Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson comes along and he's got such a big social media following, you had a couple other brands that obviously, hit it big with, a $1 billion purchase of a very small brand that Diageo did, right? With obviously Tres Amigos. And, from that standpoint, you buy yourself a lot of advertising and a lot of press, and it was very smart on their move. So social media really brought a lot of exposure to the liquor industry. Compared to, it used to kind of be a good old boys club. It's a little bit different, which they call the 3-tier system, which you have to go from a manufacturer to a distributor and then to a retailer. And the federal law with the 3-tier system dabbles that you can't own 2 licenses simultaneously. And it's kind of a law that goes back to prohibition to kind of keep the mobsters out of it, right? And controlling the liquor industry after prohibition lifted. So kind of the barrier to entry, like anything, right? So many people say, well, I can't find money to buy real estate. And you say, find a deal and money will find you. And it's kind of the same thing. If you have a great brand and you have something that's a niche and something that's a little bit different, there's always an avenue to get into it. And sometimes ignorance is bliss in the industry. So you're just not thinking like everybody else. And that happened to be my case,
Yeah, that's, it's funny. It's the story of that everyone wants to hear, though. It's that the entrepreneur who, you started that credible brand, on your kitchen table, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Once you get your product, then you just find this distillery, and then they have relationships with retailers. Is that how it works? And they have contracts. And if that's the case, then is the key to this business the distillery?
I would say the key to the business is getting to the consumer, right?
Consumer. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's one thing where I work backwards from it. A lot of people tried to force a distributor, like the distributors, to say, hey, sell my brand for me, right? So here's an example, like Iowa. When I was selling apple pie in Iowa, Iowa's a little bit different because the state acts as the distributor, not to confuse everybody else out there, but there's a few states that do this, and Idaho is another one that's one of them. Since obviously you're pretty familiar with Coeur d'Alene. So there was you had to get the product listed with state people to sell within their distributor network, but then there were private liquor stores that the state would sell to. So what I did is I worked it backwards, and this was before social media was big, where I dropped a mailer to every single liquor store and bar in the state of Iowa. And I said, for, a great new product that's available in Iowa, Travis Hazi's apple pie, call this number and here's my special order number. So there was one lady that actually worked for the state of Iowa, and she got hundreds of phone calls that came in within a week. And then she ended up calling me saying, hey, Travis, why is everybody calling me to order this product? And I said, hey, because it's a good brand, right? The word's catching out. It's doing well in the Midwest, in Illinois and Minnesota. And she's like, can I list the brand with you? And then can we put it in all our state stores? So I actually went to the consumer to get the consumer to poll to ask for it. And then it gave the distributors a value of why they should carry my brand, right? Instead of just sitting on it and wasting their money.
So what I loved what you did next is that you exited. A lot of people don't exit, first of all. And I know not completely, and you still got some revenue from the old days. But let's talk about how you pivoted from there now. So, and what were you thinking at that time? Because some people work their whole life and then exit and retire. You did it at a pretty young age, and I have a feeling that you're probably going to do it a few more times with some other businesses.
Right. So it's kind of, when I sold it, since my name was on my first brand that I started, I mean, it was literally labeled Travis Hazi's apple pie. It's kind of different where you almost lose your identity. It's so much part of your life. Like, you're so tied to real estate, and when you but you're an entrepreneur, you're involved in other things. And it took me a little bit to kind of unwind that and figure out that just because my name was tied to one thing doesn't mean that I can't do anything else, right? And, it's kind of funny that, as you know, Brittany and I, we have a place in Florida. And ironically, we bought that when and obviously when we sold the brand, one of the first things we did was we bought one real estate. That was one of our first real estate properties. We had a couple of them, but that was one of them. The first one, I was actually outside of the state. And I was actually just sitting outside, and Florida happened to be a test market, or one of the first area where Amazon started doing their own deliveries, like the vans that you see out there. And sometimes life unfolds that way a little bit, where I happened to be fishing in Canada the week beforehand with my friend Brad, who is a delivery driver for UPS. And he was messing with me, calling me, hey, big shot, now you sold your brand. What are you going to do? Call me Hollywood, and, all these, how buddies just ride each other.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey, Brad, I'm going to come deliver packages with you during the holiday season. I'm going to ride around in the jumper seat of your big brown truck, right? So, but lo and behold, I was down there, and an Amazon van drove by, and I walked up to the young man that was driving it, and I just said, hey, when did Amazon start delivering packages? And he said, well, I work for a third-party contractor, and, Florida just happens to be one of the areas. So I hunted that down and tried to find out that avenue. My dad's a retired diesel mechanic, and my grandpa owned 3 semis out of Monroe, Wisconsin, and hauled cheese to Chicago. So I just thought it was pretty cool. And I thought, who could, one of the things that I had in the back of my mind is who was ever going to change logistics was going to be a next wave that was going to be in the future, because you could just see the writing on the wall. And it just happened to be one of those things where the stars aligned. Selfishly, I was trying to get to Florida, just because obviously we had a new beach house down there. But they said, hey, we see that you're in Wisconsin. Do you want to have one of the first ones in Wisconsin when we open up your area? And I was like, absolutely. And so we jumped in, full head of steam. And during that time, I mean, we were able to hire, in the first 2 months or, 2 to 3 months, we were able to hire 80 people right from our kitchen table that believed in us, from that phone interview, and we started delivering packages to Amazon, for Amazon customers. And it's been a great relationship ever since then.
As always, buddy. Hey, I can't thank you enough for your time, and thank you very much. This has been great.